I didn't say a word when the door slammed. The sound echoed through the columns of his new porch like a final verdict. My suitcase, still tagged from the Greyhound station, toppled sideways, half in a puddle, half on the manicured stone path. I didn't bend to pick it up. My arms were stiff from the ride. My hands clenched around the frayed handle of the umbrella that had given up halfway through the downpour. Water trickled down my collar, but I barely noticed. All I could hear was Jasper's voice in my ears. "You won't see a single cent, old hag." The porch light cut off as if on cue. The sky followed, breaking open in sheets of cold, deliberate rain. A car passed by slowly, some neighbor, curious about the woman soaked to the bone left standing like misplaced furniture at the edge of a gated dream. I didn't move. Not for pride. Not for fear. I simply didn't know where to go. I remembered the first time he brought me breakfast in bed. He couldn't have been more than 9. Burnt toast and too much jelly served on a paper towel. He called me his queen. Now I was just the obstacle. The burden. The one he'd tolerated until he didn't need me anymore. I had spent my life believing that if I loved him enough, it would be enough. The lies we tell ourselves are gentler than the ones they say out loud. My bus ticket crumpled in my coat pocket. One way. I'd given up the apartment so he and Ava could have more room. I'd left the dog with a neighbor, packed every keepsake into that suitcase, now soaking by my feet. I hadn't thought I'd need a backup plan. Not for Jasper. Not for my son. He didn't even check whose name was on the ticket. And that, I suppose, was his first mistake. It started with silence. Not a cold fight, not a slammed door. Just absence. One morning, I woke up and the coffee pot was still full. Jasper hadn't touched it. The shoes he left by the door were gone. So was his phone charger. I checked the hallway. Ava's backpack was missing too. I stood there clutching my mug with both hands, the quiet so thick it felt like a wall. He hadn't said a word the night before, just the usual mutter about bills and a half-hearted thanks when I reminded him about Ava's dentist appointment. There had been nothing to suggest he'd be gone the next day. 3 hours later, Mrs. Evers from next door knocked on my screen door with eyes full of questions. "You didn't hear," she asked. He won. The jackpot. 10 million. The numbers matched, he told the whole store. My chest tightened. She showed me her phone. There he was, posted by some local news page, grinning in a parking lot with a crumpled ticket in one hand and Ava on his shoulders. I stared at the screen like it might change. The coat he was wearing, mine. I'd bought it for him last Christmas with coupons and cash from a mason jar. That night he didn't come home. Or the next. I texted. I called. At first it rang. Then it didn't. 3 days in, someone tagged me in a picture. It was a real estate agent's page, Jasper, standing in front of a massive property with a sold sign. Caption, "From rags to riches." The comments poured in. Friends, strangers. Good for him. Well deserved. What a blessing for the whole family. But I wasn't in that family anymore, apparently. On the 4th day, a nanny showed up. Young. Dressed in white scrubs. "I'm here for Ava," she said. "Mr. Callahan said she'd be with him now. No explanation. Just a custody shift, like I was an inconvenience." I didn't argue. I let the girl take her. Ava looked back once confused. I waved and smiled like this was part of a plan. That night, I sat at the kitchen table staring at the fridge. The magnet was still there. The ticket wasn't. I used to joke that I could knead dough in my sleep, and maybe I did those first 10 years. Up at 4. Apron on before the sun rose. By 5, the bakery lights were humming, and the mixer whirred louder than my thoughts. I gave that job 32 years of my life. Blisters that turned to calluses. Knees that cracked every time I crouched. But it paid the bills. Kept food on our table lights, on Jasper clothed, though mostly from second-hand bins and hand-me-downs passed through church friends. He never seemed to mind. Not then. When he was 7, he asked me why his pants didn't have the swoosh like the other boys. I told him brands don't warm you in the winter. He nodded, like he understood. Back then, he still trusted me. Then came the teenage years. Then the late nights. Then the nights he didn't come home at all. I bailed him out twice. The first time with the last of my savings. The second with a loan I barely repaid. When he disappeared for a year, leaving his daughter with me and no explanation, I told everyone he was figuring things out. Ava called me Mama Lo before she ever called him Dad. I wiped her nose, packed her lunches, held her hair when she got sick. I was 59 and changing diapers again. And when he came back, taller, skinnier, sober, for once I welcomed him like he hadn't shattered our trust. I bought him new sheets, gave him my bed, started working double shifts to keep up with the grocery bills. One afternoon, after cashing out at the bakery, I walked across the street to the corner store. Eggs, bread, 2 cans of soup on sale. At the counter, I saw the lottery sign flickering. The man ahead of me took the last gallon of milk. I was too tired to argue, so I grabbed a scratcher ticket out of pure frustration. At home, I stuck it to the fridge with Ava's photo magnet, the one where she's missing a front tooth, and wearing the birthday hat I folded out of leftover newspaper. It was a silly moment. I even laughed to myself. If this changes our lives. I said aloud, I'm buying a house by the lake and sleeping till noon. He was in the kitchen. He heard me say it. I didn't raise a thief, but maybe I raised someone who forgot who bought the bread. The morning after Ava left, I sat in the kitchen long after the light had changed. The silence was too loud, the chair too stiff, the house too clean without her fingerprints. I stared at the blank spot on the fridge like something might reappear if I looked hard enough. Then I opened the drawer where I kept receipts, warranty slips, expired coupons. I don't know what I expected to find, maybe nothing. But my hands moved on their own. There it was. Folded twice, stained with something dark in the corner. The receipt from the corner store dated a week before Jasper's big announcement. A lottery ticket listed between the bread and a jar of pickles. My stomach flipped. I drove straight to the gas station. The boy behind the counter, Marcus, I think, looked up when I stepped in. Miss Callahan. Right, he said. You always get the ginger tea and a scratcher. I nodded. My voice wasn't ready yet. You remember if I bought a lottery ticket here? About 10 days ago, he rubbed his jaw thinking. That rainy Thursday, yeah. You were mad about the milk. Got the ticket instead. I showed him the receipt. He stared, then walked to the back. A few minutes later, he came out holding a flash drive. Security keeps footage for 2 weeks. I copied it. You might need it. That night I didn't sleep. I called Willa the next morning, asked if she still had the number of the lawyer who helped her with her tenant case. She did. I met him at his office after hours, slid the receipt across the table like a secret I was ashamed to say out loud. Elias Moreno didn't blink, just asked for copies, dates, names. We'll file a formal request to freeze the claim, he said, pending ownership verification. I nodded, hands folded in my lap. He can't know, I whispered. Not yet. He won't, Elias said. Not until we have everything. So I went home. I made myself tea. I folded laundry. I watered the plants. I did all the things that made a day feel ordinary. And while Jasper posted photos of watches and champagne, I was already rewriting the story. One signature at a time. Willa met me at the diner near the river, the one with the chipped mugs and the lemon pie that never disappointed. We'd been friends since we both worked night shifts at the school district. Her in maintenance, me in food service. We'd seen each other through layoffs, funerals, weddings that shouldn't have happened and some that should have. But that day, I didn't touch my pie. I just stirred my coffee until it went cold. I gave him the house, I said, quietly. She looked up. Fork midair. What do you mean? I signed it over. Years ago, after his second job application got rejected. He said he needed something in his name for the loan officer to take him seriously. Said he was trying to build credit. I paused. Said he was trying to grow up. Willa set her fork down. And you believed him? I nodded. Of course I did. I was his mother. She reached across the table and touched my wrist gently. You're still his mother. He's just not your son anymore. I stared at the faded sugar dispenser between us. He's always taken more than he gave, even as a boy. I'd give him the bigger slice and he'd still ask if there was more. And I stopped myself, then said it anyway. I let him. Willa didn't respond right away. She just let the words sit between us like something sacred. I thought that's what mothers did. I continued. Absorb. Adjust. Make room. I thought sacrifice was the highest form of love, but maybe what I did wasn't love. Maybe it was something else. What do you mean? I think I confused sacrifice with self-erasure. Her face softened. It's not too late to redraw the lines. I looked out the window where the rain had started again, soft this time, like the sky was crying quietly. Just for me. I don't need to redraw them, I said. I've already started writing new ones, and the first line would be written in black ink, signed beside my own name, under a heading that couldn't be erased, rightful owner. The envelope came in a plain white sleeve delivered by courier just after lunch. Inside was the ruling from the state lottery office. My name, typed in clean font, declared the legitimate purchaser and sole claimant of the winning ticket. I held it like it might disappear if I blinked too hard. My fingers trembled, but my voice didn't when I called Elias. It's official, I said. He exhaled slowly on the other end. Congratulations, Mrs. Callahan. We'll move forward with the press arrangements. The payout will remain frozen until the public statement, but from a legal standpoint, the matter is closed. Thank you, I said. I'd like to keep everything quiet until then, especially from him. He didn't ask why. I think he already knew. That night, I pulled out the coat I was wearing the day I bought the ticket. Worn at the cuffs buttons mismatched. I smoothed the sleeves with my hands and hung it by the door. I wasn't sentimental about clothing, but this one had become something more than fabric. It was proof of patience, of presence, of being exactly where I said I was when no one was watching. 2 days later, Jasper posted a video from the front seat of a new car. Red leather seats, panoramic roof engine humming like pride. The caption read, "Finally free. No more dead weight." The likes poured in. Congratulations fire emojis, prayers from people who didn't know the full story, or maybe didn't care to. The next day, he hosted a backyard party. I watched through the feed of a cousin who still had me as a silent friend on her profile. There were lights strung through the trees, tables overflowing with catered food, and a custom cake shaped like a lottery ticket. I could see Ava in a yellow dress swinging with another child. She looked happy. That hurt more than it should have. I sat in my apartment lights, off sipping my tea from a chipped mug. I didn't need to be there. I didn't need a seat at a table that had long since stopped saving a place for me. I had something better now, my name, my record, my truth. And soon I'd have a microphone. Elias called the following morning to confirm the date. The lottery would hold a press briefing downtown at the agency headquarters. No cameras unless I approved. A simple statement. A formal declaration. My moment delivered not with spectacle, but with paperwork. Jasper still hadn't called. Still hadn't asked. He didn't need to. Because when the world finally heard whose name was printed on that ticket, it wouldn't be his voice echoing through the room. It would be mine. The room was smaller than I imagined. No stage, no dramatic lighting. Just a podium, 2 chairs, and a row of reporters with notebooks and cameras set to record. Elias stood beside me, nodding toward the official from the lottery office as he took the microphone. After a thorough investigation, the man began. We are here to confirm the identity of the rightful winner of the $10 million jackpot, announced last month. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I'd already done the shaking, the crying, the whispering into teacups at night. What was left in me was stillness. We officially recognize Ms. Lorene Callahan as the sole purchaser and legal owner of the winning ticket. There was a beat of silence, then flashbulbs. The kind that remind you stories can be rewritten with a single sentence. I stepped up to the microphone and cleared my throat. I bought that ticket after work, same way I've bought bread and milk for most of my life. I stuck it to my fridge next to a photo of my granddaughter. I didn't shout when it disappeared. I didn't accuse anyone. I just waited and I gathered what I needed. This wasn't about revenge. It was about truth. And sometimes, the quietest voice in the room is the one finally worth listening to. The clip made its way online before I even got home. Within hours, the story had a title, "Mother Outwits Son in Lottery Scandal." The comments started pouring in, some sympathetic, some vicious, but none of them doubting anymore who the ticket had truly belonged to. By evening, Jasper's accounts had been frozen, his credit lines flagged. The lavish life he'd scrambled to assemble began unraveling thread by thread. He called just before midnight. I almost didn't answer, but I needed to hear how he'd say it. "Mom," he sobbed, "you ruined me. How could you? You didn't even warn me." I waited. Then I said, "You never even asked who bought the ticket." And I ended the call. Because by then, the only story that mattered was the one I'd written with silence receipts and my name in print. He came on a Wednesday, just after noon. I heard the knock before I saw the shadow through the glass. I opened the door slowly. He looked smaller than I remembered, thinner around the eyes. His clothes didn't fit the way they used to, like he'd borrowed them from someone who used to matter. "I lost everything," he said. I didn't say anything, just leaned against the doorframe and waited. They froze all my accounts. I had to give the car back. "The condo's under review." His voice cracked. "I don't even know where to go." I nodded, once not unkindly. "You didn't come here for directions." He flinched. "I came because you're my mother." That word, once heavy with memory, felt light now, as though it had drifted too far from its meaning. "I know I messed up," he said quickly, "but you can't just turn your back. Not with Ava. She keeps asking where you are. You'd do this to her." I felt it then, that sharp tug beneath the ribs. The one only a child's name can pull. But I didn't let it move me. "I'll always love Ava," I said quietly. "And if she ever needs me, truly needs me, I'll be there. But this," I motioned between us, "this is yours to face, not hers." He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. For once, he had no story to bend, no words to smooth the edges of his choices. "You didn't lose everything, Jasper," I said. "You gave it away. Every time you looked at what I gave and decided it wasn't enough." I saw something flicker behind his eyes. Hurt or understanding, I couldn't tell. "I'm not asking for money," he whispered. "I know," I said. "But what you're asking for, I don't have anymore." He looked down, then past me, then away. I stepped back inside, hand still on the knob. "I hope you find something worth keeping next time," I said, and I closed the door. Not with anger, not with triumph, but with peace. The house isn't big, just 2 bedrooms, a kitchen that hums when the kettle boils, and a window that catches the light over the lake like it was waiting for me all along. I didn't choose it for the view or the square footage. I chose it because when I stepped inside, I could breathe. Not deeply, not all at once, but without bracing first. The first thing I unpacked was the small frame I'd picked up at a thrift shop. Inside it, I placed the original receipt, the one from that rainy Thursday, still crinkled at the corner, the words barely legible now, but mine all the same. I hung it above the table where I drink my tea. Half the money is already gone. Not to debt or indulgence, but to the kind of places that held women like me before they broke. Shelters with names like Grace House and Quiet Pines. Places where women leave behind bruises no one sees and names they no longer answer to. Elias handled the logistics. I just signed the checks. The rest sits quietly in an account I check maybe once a month. Not because I'm afraid to lose it, but because I'm no longer trying to prove anything with numbers. Peace doesn't come with commas. I kept one magnet from the old house, the one shaped like a butterfly with Ava's drawing tucked underneath, crayon scribbled skies, and a stick figure version of me holding her hand. I pinned it to the fridge just like before. A little crooked, a little sacred. Some nights I think of him, of how he used to call out for me in the dark, convinced monsters lived under the bed. I'd check every corner, every shadow, until he felt safe enough to sleep. Now the monster lives in choices, in ego, in silence too long stretched. But I don't live there anymore. Tonight I sit by the window, tea in hand. No sound but the distant sway of water and the quiet inside me that no one else gave me permission to hold. I glance toward the fridge, and I whisper, some things no one can steal.